What? Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. What was the last discussion in our previous class? Can anyone tell last discussion? Can anyone tell last discussion which we had in our previous class? What was the last topic which we had discussed?
Free float, sir.
Free float. What did we solve the first or the second example?
Second.
We have completed it. Is it right? Or we are yet to?
Not completed, sir.
Okay. All right. So can you just dictate the problem? Activity
1 to 2.
next.
2 to 3.
Okay.
2 to 4. 3 to 5. 4 to 5.
Okay.
2 to 5.
What's the duration?
Early start is given, sir.
That was the all right.
0. 10.
10 is the early start for the next activity. Is it right?
Yes, sir.
Next.
10. 22.
All right.
30.
And
10. Early finish.
what is the early finish?
10. 22.
Okay.
30.
Okay.
46. 35.
Right. Okay.
14.
14. 1 4.
Yes, sir.
Free float. Yes.
0.
Okay.
Next one is also 0.
Okay.
Next one is also 0. 0. Remaining is not done.
3-5. We have not calculated 3-5. 4-5.
0.
3-5 we have calculated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what was the last explanation which we have, I have given for 3-5?
Explanation was not
Is not
given,
given.
sir.
So since
No.
it's the second problem, I think not given. Okay. Next we have 4-5. 4-5. Okay. So 4-5, free float for 4-5. Calculate is early start for any of the activity starts from minus the early finish for 4-5. Okay, so what should the answer? Let's solve this. What should the early start for any of the activity that starts from the fifth node? Four dash five. What is the early finish for 4-5?
35.
And is there any activity after fifth node, starting from the fifth node?
No, sir.
No. So we should consider the early start for any of the activity that starts from the fifth. So what should be the early start for the activity that starts from the we have calculated this. We have done this in our previous class, is it right? How to determine the early start for the activity that starts from the fifth node.
$46 maybe, sir.
46. Is this answer right?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, the free float 4-5 46. This happens to be the answer. 46 minus 5 happens to be the answer. So free float should be equal to. Does everyone agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Or does anyone have any other answers? Okay. Does anyone want me to go back to the previous screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. 46 minus. Okay, so is it done? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to the next screen. In case if anyone wants me to go back to the previous screen. Float for 2-5. So this is the equation. Now you're supposed to determine the float for 2-5. So just calculate this and tell me the answer for this. Free float for 2-5.
$32.
32. Okay. Wait for some more answers.
$32, sir.
I will just wait if there is any other answers. One more answer. Then I will just go ahead. Free float, as we have already discussed in our previous class, nothing but it is the difference between the early start of the next activity and the early finish for the current activity. That means what? The project manager is assuming that the next activity will start as soon as possible and the current activity will finish as soon as possible. With this assumption, basically this delay or the float is being calculated. All right. So, is there any answers? Okay, 32. How do you get 32 as the answer? So, what is the calculation basically?
46 minus 14.
That means what? Considering that this activity 2-5 finishes as soon as possible. That means on time this activity will start and on time this activity will finish. Right? So if that happens, then what will happen is there will be a delay of 32 days. That means even if you start 32 days late, the project completion duration will not have an impact. Okay. physical interpretation. So you can just take some more time and write this. Then we'll go for the topic. So project manager, for the project manager, it is important to see that different type of the delays are being calculated. Why? Because a lot of flexibilities will be available in case project manager has a control of on these activities. There will be a lot of control the project manager can have uh, activities. Then the proper planning and scheduling can happen. As I have already told before, for the project manager, one of the important for the project manager, one of the important and most important aspect for the project manager is scheduling and planning. Go through the resume of the project managers. The first and the foremost responsibility you'll find of a project manager to schedule the activity. Correct. So the project manager will be responsible for scheduling the activities and having a control over the activity. Control in the sense what? So like whatever the duration, cutting down on the duration of the activity, cutting down on the cost of activities. So these are the different things the project manager is responsible. This let's go ahead. Next topic we have so here requires a little bit of concentration from your side. Let us assume that following are the activities of the project. Okay. Let us assume these three are the activities. These are those three activities. And with these activities, try to determine what is the independence vote. I'm just going for the next screen. All right. So, I hope everyone has written this. For the next. Okay, let us assume that there are three activities, 1-2, 2-3, and 3-2. Okay. Duration for the first, 10 for the next, and 1 for the third one. Early start for this activity 0. And yes, so we have and the latest finish was in this is 2-3. Latest finish, because I assume that latest finish is -4. Because I assume that latest finish.
Sir, how come 16, sir?
This is just our assumption. We have not calculated this. Or else, let us assume that we are getting confused. If you are,
It must
if
be
you are,
20, no?
which one?
That 16 one. Because the late finish for the 2-3 activity is 20
Right.
and 3-4 is a continue for that, no, sir?
-2, -3. So let us assume that 1-2 is 6. In which case, what should be E1? Must be E1. How much is E1? What should be the value of E1?
Zero.
E1 will be 0. Isn't it? And once that is obtained, what should be the value of E2 is nothing but 0 plus 6. Is it right?
Yes, sir.
And this E2 will be equal to 6. Is it right? 1 is equal to 0. And E2 is nothing but 0 plus 6. And what would be E3?
E2 plus
Correct. E2 plus duration of
2-3.
2-3. Answer should be
Okay,
That's right.
16. Yeah, yeah.
and since 1-2 activity starts from the first node, E1 will be equal to 0, and this activity starts from the second node, so we are supposed to write the value of E2, and this activity starts from the third node, so that correct.
It is-
Is it right? So these are the values. And late finish, until and unless we do not know what is the last node, cannot calculate it right now, but I have just assumed this value. Maybe there are some more activities, but we have not calculated. Okay, after fourth node, fifth, sixth, seventh, some more nodes may be there. Considering all those calculations, we are just assuming some value for latest finish. Okay, these are not the exact. note of this. For this problem, we are supposed to determine the independent float for the activity 2 dash. Rubbing all these values. Not required for us. So is it done? So if there are any doubts, you can ask. Yes, is it done?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So in that case, I'm just going to the next. Not there in the question section. For our understanding, we have written all. So the question statement. Come to the question statement now. Determine the independent float. Determine the independent float for the activity 2 dash. We are supposed to determine the independent float for the activity 2 dash 3. Okay. So just make note of this problem. So out of these 3 activities, we are only supposed to determine the independent float for 2 dash 3. So with the calculation, we will see how to determine the independent float for 2 dash 3. Okay. Okay, so I'm going for the next screen. Independent float solution 1 dash 2, 2 dash 3, and 3 dash 4. These are the list of activities. So 1 dash 2, 2 dash 3. So how do we determine the independent float? Independent float for 2 dash 3. Just a minute. Independent float for 2 dash 3 is equal to early start for 3 dash 4 minus late finish for 1 dash 2 minus duration of dash. Okay, so what it means is that we are considering that this activity will start as soon as possible and the previous activity will finish as late as. Okay, so the formula for this is latest early start minus the latest finish of the previous activity minus the duration. Okay, so this is the equation again. Or just writing this again, early start of next activity minus, okay, late finish of the previous activity, late finish of the previous activity minus duration. Okay. Just make note of this. We are assuming that the next activity will start as soon as possible and the previous activity will finish as soon as possible. Okay. So with this assumption, basically the total delay is being calculated. Okay. So the next activity means 3 dash 4 and the previous activity means 1 dash. Okay. So just make note of this. The next screen we will write what is the explanation for this calculation. Okay. So is it done? Shall we go for the next screen? And simultaneously, if there is any doubts, you can ask. Okay, shall I go for the next screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So early start of the next activity minus uh, date finish of the previous activity. Previous activity minus duration of the current activity. Okay, so this example, the next activity, of activity 2-3 equal to 2-, okay, and the previous activity, of 2-3 is equal to 1 dash. Is it right? Everyone agrees to these two statements. Any doubts here? considering 2-3 as the reference, the previous activity should be 1-2. The next activity should be 3-4. Okay. Has anyone has got any type of doubts here? Okay. And the current activity is current activity. Dash why current activity is equal to 2-3 because you are trying to calculate the independent load for 2-3. That is the only reason why current activity is considered as 2-3. So any doubts here? Till this? What is the answer? Okay, so I'm just going back to the previous screen. Why? Because what is the late finish of the previous activity? What value should be previous activities late finish? We're trying to determine 2-3, the independent float for 2-3. So for this activity, the previous activity is 1-2. So what should be the late finish of 1-2?
6.
6. Late finish of the previous activity. And what about the early start for the next activity, 3-4?
6. 16.
Is it right? So these two are the values that is to be considered. And what is the duration for the present activity, 2-3?
10.
10. Is it right? So considering this, so if you want to make note of this, you can just make note and circle those values which are important for your calculation. And then we'll go for the next screen. All right, so those who have made note of this, just try to calculate the independent float for 2-3. Any answer? Independent float for activity 2-3.
Zero.
0. Why 0?
16 minus 10 minus 6.
Answer is 3 for so free float for the activity 2-3 is equal to 16 minus how much?
6 minus 10.
16 minus 6 minus 10. Answer 0. Anyone wants me to explain this once again? I'm ready to explain. So 16 is nothing but it is the early start for the next activity, and the 6 is nothing but it is a late finish for the previous activity. And again, 10 is nothing but it is the total duration of this particular activity. So answer should be equal to 0. Any doubts? Or anyone wants me to explain this once again? So any doubts or anyone wants me to explain this once again? Okay, so give me an example for which we have calculated the early start and late finish. Any example is okay that for which we have calculated both early start and latest finish. And also the duration of this list of activities. Really, correct? Give me one example for which we have already calculated the early start, early finish, late start, and late finish. Early start, early finish, late start, and late finish. Just tell me that particular problem for which we have solved all these 4 parameters.
So 1-2
Yes, can you just repeat once again?
activity and duration is there.
Activity and duration is given, and we have calculated different
Early
parameters.
start and yeah.
Is the late finish calculated for that?
Early start and early finish. Late start, latest start and latest finish. Yeah.
Is it calculated for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do one thing. First, tell the activity column. Next, tell me the duration column. Next is start, and next tell me yes. So what are the different activities? Dash 2.
1-2.
Correct. Next.
2-3. 2-3. Hello. 2-3.
Correct. Next.
Next is 3-5.
3-5. Okay.
2-4.
Dash 4. Okay.
4-5.
Okay.
2-5.
What are the duration?
Duration is 10,
Okay.
12, 24, 20,
2-2-2.
20,
20.
20, 5,
Okay.
4.
Early start.
Early start is 0,
Okay.
10,
Okay.
22,
Okay.
10, 30,
All right.
10.
10. Late finish.
Late finish is 10, 22,
Okay.
46, 41,
Next.
46, 46.
46. All. Thank you. question statement. Since I do not have the space below this particular table, I'm writing the question statement above this table. That wherever space is there, write the question statement. Question is determine dependent float. Determine the independent float for each activity. Yes, this is basically the question. Start solving this problem. Or else what we will do is we'll continue this in the next class. Okay? So just make note of this question statement and we'll continue this solution in the next. Simultaneously, if anyone wants me to explain any of the concepts. Okay, so class years, give the list of absent. I guess 3 of them are absent, right? 3 or 4.
They are leaving, sir, just now. It was 58, 59 it was.
Okay, whatever is the list.
Okay, sir. I will send you the absent list.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Class is over.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.